Chapter 1. The Peculiar Predicament of Edward Eggleton. Edward Eggleton was not your typical science teacher. Oh no, he was a whirlwind of eccentricity wrapped in a tweed jacket and bow tie, with spectacles that seemed to have a mind of their own, perpetually slipping down his nose as if attempting a daring escape. His hair, a wild concoction of grey and ambition, stood rebelliously against the laws of gravity, possibly in protest of Edward's latest attempt to invent a shampoo that doubled as a hair growth serum and a breakfast smoothie. Now, Edward Eggleton had always been fascinated by the wonders of transformation. His classroom was a chaotic symphony of bubbling beakers and whirring gadgets, a place where the ordinary became extraordinary and the extraordinary became downright bizarre. The students, wide-eyed and secretly thrilled, never knew if they'd be learning about the periodic table or witnessing an accidental explosion that would send them running for cover. On the fateful day that would change everything, Edward stood before his class, a gleam in his eye that suggested either genius or madness, perhaps a delightful blend of both. "Today, my dear pupils," he announced with a flourish, "we shall explore the fascinating world of metamorphosis." With a dramatic wave, he unveiled his latest contraption, the marvellous Metamorpho machine. It looked like a cross between a giant toaster and a medieval torture device, with an array of levers, dials, and a rather ominous big red button labelled "Do Not Press." Naturally, Edward pressed it. In a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the classroom was engulfed in a kaleidoscope of flashing lights and an orchestra of peculiar noises, whistles, pops, and a sound that could only be described as a rubber duck being tickled. The students watched in awe as Edward, with an expression of pure delight, began to shimmer and shake like jelly in an earthquake. Then, with a poof and a puff of smoke that smelled suspiciously like burnt toast, Edward vanished. In his place, standing on the teacher's desk with a look of utter bewilderment, was a mini schnauzer. A mini schnauzer with spectacles perched precariously on its nose and a bow tie hanging jauntily around its neck. The class erupted into laughter, a cacophony of giggles and guffaws that echoed off the walls. Edward the dog, as he would henceforth be known, barked in indignation, trying desperately to maintain a semblance of dignity, which, given the circumstances, was rather challenging. As the dust settled and the reality of his canine condition dawned upon him, Edward realized two important things. First, that he had inadvertently discovered a method of turning humans into dogs, and second, that he had an uncontrollable urge to chase his tail. Thus began the extraordinary and uproarious adventures of Edward Eggleton, the science teacher turned schnauzer, whose quest to return to his human form would lead him through a series of misadventures more fantastical than a fairy tale, filled with whimsy, wonder, and a generous helping of hilarity.